In my constituency alone, there are more than 20 privately owned buildings across 7 developments which were found to have ACM cladding. And far from meeting the government's target of remediating them all by June of this year, work was completed on only one, Babbage Point. And while it's well underway at 2 other sites, New Capitol Quay and Greenwich Square, it has not even begun on the remaining 4, not least because of difficulties around the application process for the private sector remediation fund. When it comes to cost, in 2 cases, that of City Peninsula and the Greenwich Millennium Village, the developers have done the right thing and committed to covering the full costs of the remedial works and the required interim fire safety measures. In the case of New Capitol Quay, leaseholders are being fully protected from those costs because the NHBC accepted a claim to pay in full following an investigation. But others in other blocks have not been so fortunate. At Babbage Point, the original contractor and building owner, Durkan, has strenuously avoided committing to covering the costs of the completed remedial works should their application to the fund be unsuccessful, and they've passed on the full costs of 23 months of waking watch in place for so long because they themselves dragged their feet. Of course, as we've already heard, the cladding crisis now extends far beyond the issue of ACM. My local authority has identified at least 24 buildings and counting with a type of HPL present, where leaseholders are likely to find themselves in protracted legal disputes between building owners and the original contractor. There are an unknown number of buildings that have serious issues with defective fire stopping and compartmentalisation, as the Barratt-constructed Royal Artillery Quays development in my constituency does, where again leaseholders are at risk of being hit with significant costs. And there are an untold number of leaseholders in scores of developments locally who currently cannot sell their homes or remortgage because of the unintended impact of MHCLG guidance. And the Minister should know that in some cases, while the ESW1 process has worked, in many others it hasn't. And I have cases where large mortgage providers are rejecting the form outright, and others where forms can't even be issued because of a lack of indemnity insurance coverage. It's clear the steps taken to date have not even begun to address this set of interconnected problems. And while it's perhaps understandable that ministers and their officials might be overwhelmed by a crisis which continues to grow in its scale and complexity, and balk at the potentially colossal drain on the public purse, this crisis is not going to disappear. As we've said time and time again, the government have a responsibility to act decisively to fix it. Ministers need to start by going beyond the moral suasion and compelling developers to do the right thing. Where that won't work, step in and expand the scope and the amount of funding to remediate where necessary, and oversee a nationally coordinated response to this, so that 3 years, coming up to 3 years from the Grenfell tragedy, we can finally get a grip on this and protect leaseholders as they were promised in the wake of that tragedy.